Today, we welcome everybody and thank you for being here today to hear our wonderful, wonderful speaker and local author, which is Janis Thomas. And we know you'll have questions, but we ask you to please put the questions in chat. And our wonderful Maddie Margarita, who finds all our speakers and books them creatively, will do the questions from the chat afterwards, after Janis is finished. Janis has become more than a writer. She's become a teacher and influencer of writers and has a love of it so dear to her heart. And I've known Janis for many, many, many years. And we go back even to a classroom where Raymond Obsfeld was a professor, and Janis was reading some of her work. And I remember Raymond saying to her, you know, you have a great story. When are you going to write it? And Janis did. She wrote. She didn't need to come back to class, and she's been publishing ever since. And she's written everything from one book that was named the Chick Lit Story of the Year, to deep stories, to deep feeling stories of women, to even a musical murder mystery. And she's come into that area there. She's had many, many successes to where now you can get her book on Target, you can get her book on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and that's just, you know, the writer's dream right there. Janis also teaches on crafting and all aspects of crafting, as she did just recently at the Southern California Writers Conference down in the San Diego area, and has on the SCWA YouTube channel. We have she has her great teaching seminar she did of the Writer's Toolbox, which we invite you to look to. But let us welcome everyone here. And again, Maddie will take your questions and answer them for you. And we will go from there. And I just want to introduce this moment. Thank you for coming today. And let us welcome Janis Thomas. Okay, Janis. You are there.
Hi, everybody. It's really good to be here. Thank you for having me. I don't know, Larry, that was quite a buildup. I hope I live up to it. It's great to see all your faces. I look forward to seeing you in person soon, too. I do love the craft of writing. I love writing. I love talking about writing with my peeps, my tribe. You guys are my tribe. And I think craft is really important. I think, you know, there's a lot that goes into the publishing business, the business of writing, creating a platform and social media and all of those things. But the most important thing is writing the book, because you really can't create a platform for something that doesn't exist yet. So I really like to concentrate on the actual writing of the book, to write the best story that you can. And it doesn't matter whether you are planning to self-publish or go traditional or hybrid or vanity press. What matters is to make sure that your book is the absolute best that it can be, because as a self-publisher, it has to be up to traditional publishing standards for it to do well. And I know you guys are all great writers, so there may be stuff that we talk about today that's, you know, you already know, but we can get some new ideas and maybe have some aha moments. This talk is really going to be centered around writing scenes, scene construction, because those are really the building blocks of your novel. So I'm gonna actually share my screen. I have a PowerPoint presentation. This particular workshop is taken from Novel Intensive. Some of you has anyone taken Novel Intensive? I think a few of you have, yeah. So this is one particular section that fits into the whole. At the Writers Conference in February, I taught something called Novel Boot Camp. And this is also a section from Novel Boot Camp where we sort of go soup to nuts and we workshop it. And we may be doing it again in September, just a little plug. So this is just one section on creating killer scenes. And in order to do that, we're going to have to talk a little bit about story structure and character arc, just so we know where we are. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and see if I can do it. My daughter helped me practice this yesterday. So if it works, uh-oh, that's not the, well, those are lions, aren't they nice? Love those lions. Okay. And I also have to say, I love Jim. I love your backgrounds every time we're on a call together. I just love figuring out what it is. So it's awesome. Okay. So creating killer scenes, how to drive your story forward. Larry already told you who I am, so we don't need to do that again. So let's talk about story structure first. So Ara Gregorian and I created the novel Intensive, and what we did was we wanted to sort of simplify things because there's a lot of books on writing, there's a lot of tutorials, there's a lot of classes, and there's so many different ways of looking at story structure. So we decided to come up with something simple, which is, we call it the fishy structure. All stories are about the transformation of the main character. And most stories really have a fish out of water. That's your main character. So for Act 1, we have the fish in their aquarium, the ordinary world. And then something happens that forces your main character, your fish, to jump out of his aquarium. And then he's in this disordered world. This is Act 2, where he's trying to figure out what's going on. He's trying to navigate, trying to learn how to breathe. And then ultimately in Act 3, once he's had that dark night of the soul, he can't breathe, he wants his aquarium back, then he becomes flying fish. He transforms into the character that we want him to be. And so that's just very quickly story structure, 3-act structure. The most important thing that you need to know about your character is his or her motivation. What does your main character want? What is standing in his way? That's the conflict. And what is he willing to do to get it? So it's really important to remember that the hero's journey is what creates what drives all good fiction. So I also want you guys to know that I am happy to, I don't want you to have to take notes. So I'm happy to send a PDF of this presentation to Maddie that she can forward to you guys, just so you don't have to take any notes. Okay, let's keep going. I know this is really long, I apologize, but it's really important. So character arc is the transformation or inner journey of a character over the course of a story. The character begins as one sort of person and gradually transforms into a different sort of person in response to changing developments in the story. Those are your plot points. Those are created by scenes, which we're going to get to. Since the change is often substantive and in the opposite direction, the term arc is often used to describe the sweeping change. A driving element of the plots of many stories is that the main character seems initially unable to overcome opposing forces, possibly because he or she lacks skills or knowledge or resources or friends. To overcome such obstacles, the protagonist must change, possibly by learning new skills to arrive at a higher sense of self-awareness or capability. Protagonists can achieve such self-awareness by interacting with their environment, by enlisting the help of mentors, by changing their viewpoint, or by some other method. Okay, so I know that there are stories where the main character doesn't change at all. Gone Girl, but this is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about most stories and most engaging fiction. The reader is engaged because they want to see that character come through something, come to the other side of something. We're going on a journey with the character. And so we want to see them learning and growing over the course of the story until they are triumphant. So, and even if they don't change, we still have to have exciting scenes, right? So that's your character arc. Now, your plot, which your scenes will create, the scenes create the plot, right? Your plot is the vehicle that's driving your character through their journey, that's carrying the character through the journey. And so everything that happens must affect the character. The character just doesn't, amble through all of these different plot points. The character must be moved in some way, affected in some way, so that every plot point affects them and helps them change and grow and get to the other side. Does that make sense? We all good? Okay. So we're going to just have a really, really brief beat thing. So what is a beat? A beat refers to an event, a decision, or discovery that alters the way the protagonist pursues his or her goal. Okay? And beats are made up of scenes. Beats establish story pace. So beats happen and character arc happens no matter what your genre is. These are things that are just every good narrative, every good story is made up of beats and character arc. So this is our fishy structure that Ara and I created. James Scott Bell has different beats. Save the Cat, Blake Snyder, he has different beats, but this is our fishy structure. So in the beginning, we see our main character. We see his aquarium. We see how he or she lives. At some point in that beginning area, we have a thematic seed that's dropped in there. What is your story really about? What is the theme that you're telling your reader? And then we have the crack in the glass. Now, this is sometimes called the inciting incident. It's that event that happens that shifts something for the main character, that starts them on their journey. Now, they may not want to go on the journey yet, but because they really like their aquarium, they like their life. And also, you know, we as human beings, we tend to resist change. So even though something has happened, this inciting incident has happened, we're still not ready to jump out of the tank. But then ultimately we jump out of the tank because our aquarium has become unlivable because of that crack in the glass. So we jump out of the tank, we enter Act 2. And now this is the learning to breathe section, is sometimes called the honeymoon period or the promise of the present. It's where in the romantic comedy, we see the montage between the main characters. They're getting to know each other and it's really fun. And they're going to the movies together and throwing popcorn on each other. So they're thinking that they can navigate it. And then about halfway through, we have the I like it out here, but beat. And that's things are starting to maybe look like they're going to splinter. And then we have the flopping around where, okay, things are now going to hell in a handbasket. And now we get to the I can't breathe moment. And ultimately the I want my aquarium back, where things I can't do this anymore. It's sometimes called the dark night of the soul. And then your main character makes a decision whether to give up entirely, which is not what your reader wants, or learn to fly. And then we have a beat of learn to fly. It's in Notting Hill, it's all of the people getting together to get him to the press conference in time before his love flies off. In Jaws, it's them, you know, setting up the shark cage and you know, getting in the cage and all of this stuff together. That's the learning to fly. And then ultimately your fish learns to fly and becomes flying fish. So these are story beats for your story. Now, in order to create these beats, we need to create killer scenes that drive your story forward. So every beat will have some beats are one scene and some beats are a series of scenes. And it just depends on A, the story you're telling, B, your genre, and C, your voice as a writer. All right. Now let's get to the meat of my presentation, which is scene construction. So the overview is that scenes are the building blocks of your novel. They are small units of drama that drive your story forward. A scene itself is a situation involving conflict that begins and ends with a change of time and or place. And I would like to add to that maybe that a change of point of view, and even a shift in attitude. So I don't think it's just limited to a change of time and or place. Am I going too fast? Everything's okay? Sometimes I get excited and I talk really fast. So Maddie, you can just like put up your hand or something. Okay. So James Scott Bell says, a scene has its own internal structure. A POV character has an objective. That objective is met by obstacles, which make for conflict. And eventually there is an outcome. So your default on outcomes should be a setback. It makes the situation worse for the protagonist. Sometimes, for variety, the protagonist succeeds in the objective, but that victory ought to lead to more trouble down the line. So once again, and we're going to talk about escalation at the end if we have time, your scenes, you are continually raising the stakes. You are continually raising the conflict and the tension, no matter your genre. This is true for all genres until you get to that ultimate climax of your story. Now, it's important to remember this because a flat line is not interesting. We always want to keep going up and up and up and up, creating tension, creating more conflict. William Goldman, I love his quote. I use it all the time. Put your character in a tree and throw rocks at him. And I would add to that, every rock should be bigger and bigger and bigger. All right. Effective scenes should include the following: a beginning, a middle, and an end, a goal, conflict and tension, new information, a resolution, a hook or promise to the reader, an emotional response to the situation, and a meaningful connection to the theme, logline, or premise. This sounds like a lot, but we're going to look at some scenes and we're going to see that some good scenes, and we're going to see that they have all of these things to them. James Patterson is really great at the hook or promise to the reader. He's great at writing really tight, effective scenes. And forgive me, I tend to go tangential when I'm giving presentations. Concise, stay concise. Your writing needs to be frugal, especially when you're writing beat scenes, important scenes. The simpler, the better. Always keep it simple. The simplest way to say something is always the best in terms of moving your story forward. We always, we're writers, words, we love words. And sometimes we get caught up in those words. And then we use a lot of them because they sound really good and they're really great words and they go together really well. But sometimes when we're stringing all of these words together, they get in the way of moving the story forward. And that's really what we want. You want your reader to keep turning the page, to keep wanting to find out what's going on, what's going to happen next, what's going to happen next. And keeping your writing tight and frugal is a really good way to do that. Okay, tangent over. So in the beginning, these are things that you need to know. Who is there and where are we? And things to keep in mind: where was the character right before this scene? And we're going to talk about subtext later, but you also need to know not only where the character was right before this scene, but what was going on emotionally and psychologically for this scene, for this character before this scene. So there are ways to begin a scene. One of them is, I'm so sorry, are you hearing a buzzing? I have a little thing happening with my phone. I never get texts, and I'm getting a ton of texts right now. And I think it's about my daughter's tennis match this afternoon. So anyway, so conversation, action, and description. So let's take a look at these. Conversation. I told you not to get involved with those guys, Grant said, running a fingertip through the beads of condensation on his pint glass. Dan forced a grin. Yeah, I know. You're always right. He signaled the barkeep for another shot. Okay, so in these two lines of dialogue, we know where we are. We're in a bar, obviously. And we also know that, that Dan has a problem. So that's a great way to begin, by conversation. I love using conversation, and dialogue is a whole separate, it's a whole separate workshop, but dialogue is always active. So dialogue is a great way to open a scene because it's active. It pulls the reader right in. Okay. Another way to begin a scene is action. John pressed himself against the side of the cliff, struggling to keep his precarious hold and praying in the moonlight wouldn't reveal his position to the men above. Okay. So once again, we have an effective beginning because John also has a problem and we know exactly where he is and he's in trouble. So, we want to find out what happens next. Poor John, he might fall off the cliff and the men will be the least of his worries, right? And here we go. Another way to start is description. Liv was giddy with excitement. She had never met a movie star before, and here she was, about to interview the most famous actor in the world. It didn't hurt that he was just named Sexiest Man Alive by People magazine. Okay, so description. Now, another way to use description, and this is effective for maybe the passage of time. So 2 weeks later, this is a transition description. 2 weeks later, Greta found herself staring at the same poster on the street light. The M had started to peel, but the word missing was unmistakable. So what I like about that transition is it's cutting out 2 weeks that we don't really need to know everything that happened to Greta during that 2 weeks. So that's a good transition that moves the story forward, that gets you to the important scene and the important beat. Flashback, I could still remember the feel of his hands on my skin, his lips on my mouth, the way he whispered in my ear. So obviously we know that this is someone, she's seeing someone who was very important to her, who meant a lot to her for the first time in a long time. That's a flashback, but it's a quickie. I am, another tangent, try to be frugal with your backstory. So this is very quick backstory, and it's mostly to make you know where she is now and who she's seeing now. Okay, so the middle of a scene should reveal motivation and conflict, reveal tension, and show how the main character, how does the main character try to get what he or she wants. And the middle should also provide new information. So let's look at the Grant Dan scene, going after those first 2 lines of dialogue. So here we reveal motivation and conflict. Look, Grant, I need $10,000. Now we're going to reveal some tension. Grant shook his head. That's a big problem, my friend. Wish I could help. Uh-oh, Grant can't help. There's conflict. How does the main character try to get what he or she wants? You can and you will. I saved your life. Have you forgotten about that? You owe me. I can't give you what I don't have, Grant said, working to keep his tone even. Provide new information. Dan glared at his friend. Carol told me about the lottery. Nice little win you had there. Okay, so this middle is doing all of these things. And as you can see, this is just dialogue. There's not even any prose or descriptors in here. And yet, even with this dialogue, it's revealing a lot of information. Sorry, I just went into my dialogue workshop. Okay. The end of a scene should include resolution. Does the main character get what he or she wants? Is there an emotional response? Is there a hook or promise to the reader? Are the stakes higher? Do we know, does it touch upon the theme, logline, or premise? So obviously, you're not going to bash your reader over the head with your theme every time in every single scene. You can't do that. You want to pepper the thematic theme in throughout the story. But this is just to let you know that scenes should have something to do with the logline and the premise of the story itself. You never want to have a scene that doesn't move your story forward. You never want to have a scene that isn't a part of your, that is not connected to your logline. We do that. We tend to. I mean, I do it all the time. I write scenes that have no business in the story. They're nice, they're fun, the characters are having a great conversation, and it's lovely and delightful, but it's not moving my story forward. So your logline can be a way for you to keep yourself from spiraling and just writing scenes and going tangential. Because once we spider out, sometimes it's hard to rein ourselves back in. So just make sure that your scenes are moving your story forward. They're related to your logline. They're all about the premise, and they're all about getting your main character through their transformation and to the end of the story, to the climax. Okay. So let's look at Dan and Grant again. Resolution. Does the main character get what he or she wants? I can't touch that. So listen, the main character obviously is not always going to get what he or she wants. So I can't touch that money. It belongs to Carol and she ain't sharing. And I don't have 10 grand lying around. Wish I did, but I don't. He crossed his arms over his chest. The conversation was over and Dan knew it. Emotional response. Sweat. Remember, all of the plot points, everything that happens to your main character, that has to inspire and elicit an emotional response. Sweat erupted from his brow. He was running out of options. The haze of smoke in the bar was making him dizzy, or maybe it was his own fear choking him. Hook or promise to the reader. Dan's phone buzzed against the bar top. He grabbed it and looked at the screen. I'm a dead man. So, are the stakes higher? Seems like they're higher now, right? Because now he didn't get the money and now he's dead. So obviously we don't know what the log line is. So, but I'm just going to tell you that this scene does relate to the log line. Okay. So scenes and sequels, this is done a lot in action, thriller, mystery kind of books, but it also is for romance, really across genres. And if you do, I bring up Patterson again, because he's a master at tight scenes and sequels. So if you have the occasion to read some of his books, even just if you read the first few chapters, you will see the rhythm, the pattern. So just 1 second. Had to wet my whistle. Okay, scenes. Goal, conflict, disaster. So let's look at the Grant and Dan scene. I know it's a lot of words. So let's just move down to the goal. Look, Grant, I need $10,000. So then the conflict is, I can't touch that money. It belongs to Carol. And then the disaster is, he looks at the screen of his phone. Oh no, that's the disaster. So let's take a look at the sequel to this scene, which includes the reaction, the dilemma, and the decision. Okay. Dan stormed out of the bar without looking back, shoved his hands in his pocket. This is his reaction, and scanned the parking lot. He hadn't expected Grant to help him, not really, more like hoped. He glanced left and right, looked for movement, saw none, saw no one, but the people he owed wouldn't show themselves, would be out in the open. They wouldn't be seen until it was too late. So this is new information, right? Dilemma, what the hell was he going to do now? Grant was his last chance. Well, his second to last chance, new information, but he couldn't go there. He thought maybe going down that road would be worse than getting his clock cleaned, wasn't it? It's going to hurt, Dan. It's going to hurt bad. His pulse thrummed in his ears, his heart slammed in his chest. Dan wasn't a coward, but he knew what these guys were capable of. He felt eyes on him, thought maybe he was being paranoid, knew better. Someone could be lurking in the shadows next to his piece of crap car. Only one way to find out. He stepped off the curb and headed across the asphalt for his '82 Corolla. And when we beg for it to stop, we're going to make it hurt even more. A horn shrieked and Dan flinched, went into a crouch, prepared for the attack. Nothing came. Okay, so here's the decision. Okay, if I reach the car, I'll get there alive. I'll go see her. He made it to the trunk. So, reaction, dilemma, decision. Okay, and this follows the goal, conflict, and disaster. So they're kind of married to each other, and it's kind of, you know, there's a similar feel, there's a similar rhythm to the goal, conflict, disaster, and reaction, dilemma, decision. So, so we're going to look at this scene. I think I managed to share, and I'm going to stop it along the way. So this is from Notting Hill, and we're going to go through the scene and look at everything. We're going to check off the checklist of what all effective scenes need to include. So let me know if you can't hear it.
But there's a delivery for you.
Martin, really, can't you just do it yourself?
But you see, this is not for the shop. This is for you.
Tell me, if I employed
Okay, are we good? Can you hear it? Fine?
a wet rag, would I have to pay it as much as I pay you?
Hi.
Hello.
You disappeared.
Yeah. I had to leave.
Okay, so the beginning of that scene was conversation, right? It was the clerk telling him you've got a delivery and it's just for you. It's not for me, it's for you.
didn't want to disturb.
How have you been?
Fine. I don't know, everything much the same, you know. When they change the law, Spike and I will marry immediately. Whereas you, I've watched in wonder. Awards, glory.
Oh, no, it's all nonsense, believe me. Well, yesterday was our last day of filming, so I'm leaving. But I have to go away today, but I wondered if I didn't, whether you might let me see you a little. Or a lot, maybe.
Okay, there's the goal. So she wants to get back with him, right? That's the goal. Oh, uh-oh, what happened? It's modern technology. Uh-oh.
Well, yesterday was our last
Sorry.
day of filming, so I'm leaving. But I have to go away today, but I wondered if I didn't, whether you might let me see you a little. Or a lot, maybe.
So the fact that he doesn't run,
See if you could like me again.
so obviously the fact that he's not running into her arms, that sets up a little bit of conflict. So obviously his answer is right now no. So that sets up the conflict and the tension. Here we go.
But yesterday that actor asked you who I was, and you just dismissed me out of hand. I heard. You had a microphone, I had headphones.
Well, you expect me to tell the truth about my life to the most indiscreet man in England?
So there's new information. So she was not being serious when she dismissed him out of hand. She just wasn't gossiping to the gossipy guy. And this is new information for Hugh Grant's character. I'm going to find a better spot.
Who I was, and you just dismissed me out of hand. I heard. You had a microphone, I had headphones.
Well, you expect me to tell the truth about my life to the most indiscreet man in England?
Okay, we don't want to play the whole scene. So now.
I'm a fairly level-headed bloke.
Okay, here's the resolution.
Not often in and out of love, but can I just say no to your kind request and leave it at that?
So this is not the resolution that she wants, but this is a kind of resolution, him saying no.
Yes. Fine, of course, Of course. Well, I'll just be going. Then it was nice to see you.
The thing is, with you, I'm in real danger. It seems like a perfect situation, apart from that foul temper of yours. But my relatively inexperienced heart would, I fear, not recover if I was once again cast aside, as I would absolutely expect to be. There are just too many pictures of you, too many films. You know, you'd go and I'd be, well, buggered.
So that's his emotional response. Let's look at hers.
That really is a real no, isn't it?
I live in Notting Hill, you live in Beverly Hills. Everyone in the world knows who you are. My mother has trouble remembering my name.
Fine. Fine. Good decision. Good decision.
And then here's an emotional, sorry, our hook or promise to the reader.
The fame thing isn't really real, you know. And don't forget, I'm also just a girl standing in front of a boy, asking him to love
Okay.
her.
All right. So that one scene had all, we checked all of the boxes. And of course, obviously it had a connection to the theme and the log line and the premise, you know, can a nobody and the most famous actress in the world, you know, be together? And so that's directly connected because she's saying, you know, it's not real. It's not real. So I just wanted to also go back to subtext because, you know, for her, she, in that scene, she wants to be with him. And when he says no, you can tell that, you know, she's like, good decision, but you can tell what's going on for her underneath. So I do want to ask how the videos are coming through. Are they okay? Okay, great. So we're going to look at subtext in another scene. And it's really important for you to remember where all your characters are emotionally, what's going on for them inside, because what they say or how they behave may not reflect what's really going on emotionally for them. And those are important elements to explore. And they're actually really fun elements to explore. You know, in dialogue class, we have some dialogue, just solely the dialogue itself. And there's no subtext. And we add the subtext and it creates very different scenes. It's really fun. Okay, so here is one of my all-time favorites, When Harry Met Sally. So I'm sure most of you know this. They've just had sex the night before, finally, after being friends for so long. And this is the next day. Awkward.
I just hope I get to say
Okay,
it.
I just hope I get to say it first. That's her subtext.
First.
I hope she says it before I do.
Mm-hmm. Once again.
I hope she says it before I do.
And that's his subtext going into the scene.
It was a mistake.
I am so relieved that you think so too.
Okay, so here's more subtext. I am so relieved, right? Does she look relieved? Does she look happy that he's relieved? She doesn't look happy at all.
I'm not saying last night wasn't great.
It was.
Yes, it was.
We just never should have done it.
I couldn't agree more.
I'm so relieved.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It's going to be a long dinner, right? So the subtext, remember the subtext when you're writing your scenes. Remember where your characters are emotionally. Remember that every scene that you write, and I know I'm kind of belaboring the point about how all of the events in your story should emotionally resonate with your main character, but I have to honestly tell you that I have read so many. You know, you as the writer, you will fill in those blanks. Of course, she's reacting emotionally. Of course, she's growing. But a lot of times we forget to add it. And I do read stories where the main character just seems like they're you know, riding a trolley through a series of events and just kind of glancing and observing. Make sure that your character is a participant, not an observer. Okay. Okay, so we have time. Yes, we have time. So your scenes, as we talked about before, they have the beginning, middle, and end. They have conflict and tension. They have new information, and then you're going to put all the together. You're going to beautifully construct this story. Very important. This is really important with fiction, is to have motivation, escalation, and transformation. Now, your main character is motivated towards their goal, but as the stakes are raised, they're going to become even more motivated. So at the beginning, when we have our inciting incident with Chief Brody, who encounters the mangled body of Chrissy Watkins on the beach, this is the beginning. That is his inciting incident. Now, we're going to take a look at what he does in response to finding Chrissy Watkins' remains on the beach.
Now, the fire chief wants you to go over the 4th of
Polly, I want to
July.
list
Can you hear that okay, guys? I did it again.
Now, the fire chief wants you to go over the 4th of
Polly,
July.
I want a list of all the water activities that the city fathers are planning for today, all right?
Right away.
Hendricks.
Hey, Chief.
Where do we keep the beach closed signs?
Chief.
We never had
Hey,
any.
to find you,
No?
Chief.
The summer kings come down here in June. You haven't got one thing on here I ordered. Not a beach umbrella.
Okay, so basically he's going to get the materials to make some signs because they don't have any beach closed signs. Okay, let's see. Let's go further. So now,
Tell you that there's a bunch of Boy Scouts out on April Day doing their mile swim for their merit badges. I couldn't call them in. There's no phones out there.
Okay, come on, get out of there. Take this stuff back to the office and get to work on those signs.
All right.
Beach is closed, no swimming, by order of the Amity PD. And let Polly do the printing.
What's the matter with my thing?
Let Polly do the printing.
Hey, Chief. Chief Brody.
okay, so in response to Chrissy Watkins' body, he's going to close the beaches. He's making the signs. He's now going out to the bay to where the kids are getting their merit badge, their swimming merit badge. This is all good stuff. He's a good person. He's doing what he's supposed to be doing. So now he's confronted by city council.
Well, what other authority do I need?
Technically, you need a civic ordinance or a resolution by a board of select.
That's just going by the book. We're really a little anxious that you're rushing into something serious here. It's your first summer, you know.
What does that mean?
I'm only trying to say that Amity is a summer town. We need summer dollars. If the people can't swim here, they'll be glad to swim at the beaches of Cape Cod, the Hamptons, Long Island.
That doesn't mean we have to serve them up a smorgasbord.
We never had that kind of trouble in these waters.
Well, what else could have done that to that girl?
Boat propeller?
Well, I think possibly, yes, a boating
That's not what...
Okay, so basically the city council and the mayor come to him and say, you can't close the beaches. It's your first summer. That's a very subtle threat. It's your first summer. You don't know how things work here. And so basically Chief Brody backs down and he's like, okay, because Chrissy Watkins is small stakes. Now, when we move forward, now we're talking about something that's a lot closer to Chief Brody. So this is Midway. That is Brody's son, okay? So the stakes have been raised, definitely raised from Chrissy Watkins, some random girl, to his son. The shark is going right by his son. So let's take a look at the difference between Chief Brody at the beginning, backing down, and Chief Brody now. Okay.
See? Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry.
And a pen, Larry?
Pen. Yeah, pen, you know.
Okay, so in the earlier scene, basically Brody's kind of backed up against the fence. He lets the mayor intimidate him. Now in this scene, we can see this is his son. The stakes have been raised. So now look at the body language. I just love this.
Because you're going to do what you do best. You're going to sign this voucher so I can hire a contractor.
I don't know if I can do that without...
I'm going to hire Quint to kill the shark.
What? August.
What are you talking about? Larry, the summer is over. You're the mayor of Shark City. These people think you want the beaches open.
I was acting in the town's best interest.
That's right. You were acting in the town's best interest, and that's why you're going to do the right thing. That's why you're going to sign this, and we're going to pay that guy what he wants.
Okay, so here we go. Now, one thing that we all know about Chief Brody is that he is afraid of the water. He does not even let his toes touch the surf when the wave comes along the shoreline. So now the stakes have been raised to the ultimate point. This is now not Chrissy Watkins, random blonde chick. It's not his son who's close to his heart, but now the stakes are up to his own life. So let's see what he does here. He's okay, this is a man who is terrified of drowning. Look at him go. See, now, because he is completing his transformation into flying fish, which is really apropos to this story, he's not even concerned about the water. Now, he's only concerned about fulfilling his goal. The stakes are at the highest they could possibly be. All along, he's wanted to protect his town, but the stakes have never been this high. Let's just cut to the chase here, shall we?
All right, come on. Show me that.
The ship is sinking and he's totally unconcerned. Oh my gosh, I did it again.
Smile, you son of a...
There's something so satisfying about watching that shark blow up, right? So those three scenes are just examples of the motivation, escalation, and transformation that we want our character to have over the course of the story. And those are three scenes that really depict those very well. If you are doing, if you want to watch a movie about beats and once you start going through story beats, and of course that's also another workshop, but you will see them. It'll start to become second nature to you of recognizing, oh, that's the My Aquarium beat. Oh, that's the flopping around beat. And there's really no better movie than Jaws. It's the perfect beats. It's a lesson in beats. So we're coming to the end of my presentation, but I just wanted to mention showing versus telling. This is really important in fiction. And once again, I really challenge you to be as frugal in your storytelling as possible. That doesn't mean skeletal, it just means frugal. And stay active with your narrative. Keep your character in the moment. Keep your reader hooked to the character by really being present and not having the character tell your reader too much, but show what that character is going through. I don't want to hear the character telling me. I want the character's actions and choices and the decisions that they're making and the way that they're reacting to the world around them and the events that are occurring. That shows your reader what the character is going through. And it really gets it establishes an emotional connection with your reader. And that's what we want. We want the reader to be emotionally connected to your character so that they want to find out what happens to him or her. That keeps them moving through your story, that keeps them turning the pages. And if you create these effective scenes, then you're going to hook your readers for sure. So that's it for my presentation. I'm good for questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And here I am. Here you all are.
Hey, great. Well, we do. Thank you, Janis. That was great.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I'm still crying for the Notting Hill, but not the shark. But anyway, we have a couple of questions, and if Janice has agreed to answer not only questions relating to this presentation, but if you have other writing questions that are particularly annoying you and keeping you up late at night, please feel free to put them in the chat right now, and she will endeavor to answer them. Okay, so we've got a couple. Let's see, this one is from Larry. How do we judge too many words to start or end a scene? It causes us beginning too early and ending too late.
Well, you really have to, and that's actually a great question. It's something that I am learning as well. Figure out, and this is what I used to have a word count. Now I'm doing a scene, like to get through a scene. That's my daily goal. I have to sit down before I write the scene and establish exactly what my reader needs to know from this scene. And that's how I figure out how to start and where to end. Because you will know, stories have a rhythm to them, almost a musicality to them. And once again, I go back to James Patterson. He does not overwrite. In some cases, he probably underwrites, but you'll know. So my advice to you is figure out exactly what your reader needs to know from the scene. The information, all of those things we talked about, the goal, the conflict, new information, resolution, figure that out. And that's where you start. That's where you start. Does that help?
Okay, so Jamie is interested in your insight in tips for helping to show emotion and tension in your scenes.
Tips for, can you repeat that?
Tips for for showing emotion and tension in your scenes, for creating and showing.
Okay, so it depends obviously on the scene and what's happening in the scene as to how big an emotional response is, but I tend to go inward for me, how I would respond. I put myself in the character's the character's shoes, how that character is going to respond. I lean toward physical responses because when I get upset or excited, my heart races. Think of all of those things. Think of the emotion that the event is inspiring, and then think how you feel when you're excited or when you're upset or when you're depressed. Sometimes my character is gonna hold back tears where I would be a sobbing mess. So, I mean, it's dictated by what's happening in the scene and how it's affecting the character, how much you want it to affect the character, and then go towards physical, go towards the heartbeat, the pulses, we all have the same, we're all humans. We all share the same range of emotions, except, I mean, if you're a sociopath, maybe you don't, but tap into yourself, tap into how you feel, because all of our characters are us. Even the psycho killers, they're parts of us. So look at your own emotional range, put yourself in the situation, and then say, well, my character is nothing like me. Okay, so then your character is going to respond differently. And once again, you're not banging your reader over the head with, when I say your character has to be emotionally connected to the events, that doesn't mean that every other line is going to be how your character is relating to that event. It just means that they're learning and growing. And so, yeah, it is going to affect them in some way. Does that help?
Yes. Okay, so, and then moving on, you showed such great scenes, that scene from Notting Hill. It's, I think that sometimes that you get to cheat in movies because the actors get to add stuff that's not on the page.
Absolutely.
But, so how do you get readers to invest in your characters like that and to relate to their motives and feelings on the page? Are there tricks to doing that?
Well, there's a lot of different ways to get your readers emotionally connected to your character. You got to make them real. You have to give them flaws and vulnerabilities. You have to give them hopes and dreams. You have to make sure that your readers know exactly what the character wants and what's standing in their way. In Notting Hill, yes, you see that she's holding back, but if you were to write that, you would say, she struggles to hold back her tears and paints a smile on her face, right? So those would be the narrative prose behind that. So yes, you have to fill in those blanks. But once again, you know, we're all emotional creatures. So, you know, writing from the heart, which I really, I'm a great proponent of writing from the heart, means that you really have to tap into yourself. And the best writers really tap into their own emotional well and really dig deep into themselves so that they can bring those you know, aspects to their characters. But yeah, I mean, characters should be real and vulnerable. There's save the cat moments that can engage your reader, you know, those moments where your character does a kindness or is silly. But once again, you want it to be, I hate the word organic, but I'm going to use it. You want it to be organic. You don't want to just throw in a save the cat moment to engage your reader, because that's being disingenuous. And readers spot that. Readers spot it when you just throw something in, you know, to nab them. So make sure that you're true to your character.
And then Tanya wants to know, when is the next dialogue class?
Probably, well, September I'll be teaching at SCWC in Irvine, and we may do it just depends on if I'm doing the novel boot camp, which we might save for San Diego, then I'll probably be teaching a dialogue class. It just depends. But, you know, I'm happy to teach one here. So
I was just going to say, maybe everybody want to raise your hand to see who would come to a dialogue class by Janis? Oh, yes, and overwhelming.
Would anyone come in person? Yeah, cool. I love dialogue, and dialogue is really an in-person kind of class for sure. But yeah, I love dialogue. I love to talk. So of course I love dialogue.
Our wish list, Janis. It's going on our wish list.
Cool.
Okay. Debbie wants to know, does the antagonist have to change? Like more intensifies or more invested in the goal?
Okay, well, I will say about your antagonist, the antagonist has to be three-dimensional. I know that sounds like, oh, no, duh, Janis, of course. But you have to make your antagonist realistic, and you have to make sure that your antagonist doesn't think they're an antagonist. You know, antagonists are, but no, I don't think your antagonist has to change. I think it would be interesting if your antagonist did change, but no, I don't think that, I don't think that transformation needs to happen with your antagonist. I think it just depends on the story.
And I think that's all the questions relating to that, but I have a few questions for you, Missy. So behind me,
I'm scared.
Behind me is Janis's upcoming book that is going to be released when, Janis?
April 12th.
April 12th by Blackstone Publishing. This is a new publisher for you, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
before
I'm very excited.
Your women's fiction books were published through what, Penguin?
My humorous women's fiction were Penguin. My domestic suspense were Lake Union, and now I'm with Blackstone, and they're fantastic. They're really great. In fact, Wendy Walker just signed a 2-book deal with them. So I was really
for anybody who wants to take a masterclass in writing complex, emotional scenes that pack a punch, I highly recommend this book when it comes out, aside from the fact that we support our members. But it would be really great. Maybe after you could just give us a quick, maybe right now, if you could just give us a quick synopsis of the story and
would you
what
give
people could look forward to when they buy Finding Grace by Janis Thomas.
Hold it up higher.
So Finding Grace, it's about an emotionally disconnected woman who's living in New York City and sort of ran away from her past until her estranged mother, who happens to be troubled, shows up and tries to get the main character, Louise, to go cross country to save a young girl. And this young girl happens to be very unique and very gifted, but we're not really sure where her mother is coming from. So You have to read the book to find out.
So it's like a domestic suspense.
It's psychological
thriller.
Yeah.
All right.
And thanks, Maddie, for the plug. I'm very proud of this. I'm proud of all my books, but I'm very excited for this one to come out into the world. So
I think it's so brave that you write in so many different genres and have been successful writing in so many different genres. You know, some people are like, okay, I found my niche. I have success here. But what made you want to write this book?
You know, I don't really know. I just I wanted to explore relationships between mothers and daughters. I mean, I usually start with the character. And what's interesting about this book is that the relationships between mother and daughter are dysfunctional, for sure. Mine with my own mother was not. So it was very interesting for me my mom was my best friend. We had an amazing relationship. And I miss her every day. But this relationship is not that way. So it was really fascinating for me to explore that dysfunctional quality. And I had to go to places that were uncomfortable for me. So, and I had to draw from people I know that have this kind of dysfunctional relationship. And it really gave me more compassion for them. So I felt like I grew a lot in the writing of this book. And it also deals a little bit with mental health issues. So that was interesting to look into also, and gave me compassion in that area too.
Hopefully we'll all support you and come out when we know that you're working on a book signing.
Yes.
Date. And
yes. End of April.
End of April? Okay.
Yeah, because the day my book comes out, I'm going to be camping with my family.
Well, don't camp near a serial killer, because I always say that's always bad. Yeah,
bad idea.
Right. Yeah, bad idea. All right. Well, I think we answered all of your questions. But we're going to finish up this portion of our program, and we want to thank everybody for being here. For everybody who is actually here in person, please hang on for a few minutes. For everybody who's on YouTube and everything, we appreciate you being here. But now we have some content for the people who are actually attending. So yay. So hopefully next time you'll all be with us too. So I hope everybody has a great week, and we will see you soon.